A convicted Evansville baby killer is back in prison after being released early. In 2002, Jonathan Richardson was sentenced to serve 55 years for murdering his stepdaughter, Faith Lee. In March, officials said Richardson had been released and was back in Evansville after serving just over 20 years of the 55-year sentence. Well, last week, Richardson violated his parole, but authorities have not said how. Records show he is back in prison with the earliest possible release date listed as August of 2041.